Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another episode of Redacted, the show where I take a look at albums that have a solid foundation but a spotty execution. And this month we are completing the Weezer trilogy, just because I can't stop picking apart Weezer albums and making them a better listening experience. I have so many hopes for this band and constantly they underwhelm. I've already made one of the records better by adding some of the B-sides in place of some of the weaker A-sides and recontextualized one of the more critically panned slices of the discography. And this month, taking a look at an album that didn't really have a chance to shine because of it being lost in not only the consecutive annual cycle that Weezer has fallen back into, but also got swept under the rug because of a covers album that came out almost immediately afterward. And Weezer themselves seemingly gave up on this project, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to make it salvageable. This month, we're going to be taking a look at their latest in the color-coded outings, Black.
Leave a 5-star review, and I'll leave you one, 2 can't knock the hustle.
Now, Black's biggest problem is that it is a bit of a victim of some of the other records in Weezer's catalog. They just were putting out too much shit at the time, and it led to a pretty inconsistent track listing. Now, I was more favorable to this record than a lot of my contemporaries. A lot of people took issue with this record, not necessarily as much as the record that I add a lot of tracks from to make this record a little more of a consistent listening experience, but because some of the writing is weaker and some of the subject matter just doesn't handle it all that gracefully on the Black album. So my goal was to take out a lot of those songs and inject some of the better tracks from Pacific Daydream, the album that came out a year prior, and make a smoother experience as a whole. I keep a lot of the rockier stuff that's on the Black album, but I just inject a little more emotion like what was seen on Pacific Daydream. And like my Red album review, this is going to be kind of a one-to-one comparison swap over what tracks I kept over what, and what I put where and why. And these are the 10 tracks that I kept.
Get off from where you are. Can't knock the hustle. Turn it up, it's the Beach Boys, singing out in a sweet voice on the roll. Die, die, these zombie bastards. We're getting stronger, stronger, going faster, faster. Whoa, I'm ready to break, 'cause there's too many thoughts in my head now. Don't get mad at me. I'm just being honest. I want us to reach my weekend one and just can't seem to get back there. They're waiting for me there, but I don't know if I can get right. I'm high as a kite. It was hot, hot, 100 degrees, but she only went in up to her knees.
As you can tell by the track listing, the only song I kept in its proper place was Can't Knock the Hustle. And that's just because it's a fun opener that has Weezer kind of feeling a little more contemporary in the writing and in the delivery, and it's just a fun song to knock the record off on the best foot possible. You know, I think that it's boisterous, it has a little bit of a throwback flair, and it has production ideas like turntablisms and brass accompaniment, or different types of accompaniment that I kept throughout the record proper, this version of the record anyway. And I go from that into Beach Boys because the end of Can't Knock the Hustle flows really well into Beach Boys, and that kind of solidifies, the subject matter on that song kind of solidifies a lot of the ideas explored on Can't Knock the Hustle, and kind of justifies the occurrence of instances like,
Don't step to me, bitch.
you know, it's a hip-hop world, and they are the furniture. And again, out of the moments on Pacific Daydream where they're kind of trying to capitalize on this millennial pop sound, it's a good companion piece to a lot of the ideas on this record. And again, those kind of scratching and kind of reversified vocals are indebted to a lot of what's on this first leg of my version on the record, because Zombie Bastards comes after that as opposed to coming immediately after Can't Knock the Hustle, and it's to kind of provide a little more of a slower moment that is another great, well-written song that just has them doing something, again, a little different. Some of the accompaniment on the chorus and sounds in the chorus feel Pacific Daydreamy-esque, but also feel a little bit more branched out than your typical bare bones style, and it's just a great song. I fucking love Zombie Bastards. It's one of the best moments on the Black album proper, if you ask me. Mancha Screwjob comes after that because High as a Kite music is a much more poignant part of the album. And again, song with a bright chorus, a very catchy millennial-esque chorus with some different types of accompaniment in the verses to kind of enhance the overall aesthetic of this record. It's a great song. I like the song well enough. It's one of the more solid parts of Pacific Daydream. Again, it's not again top tier Weezer, but in this version of the record, I used it as more of another catchy song to kind of reinstill some of the ideas sonically that the record's going for. And then I cut Living in LA and Piece of Cake because they're just some of the weaker parts of the Black Album to me. You know, they're songs that I skip more often than not, and I don't feel like reinforce a lot of the darker edge that I'm going for because the Black Album is supposed to be dark, and so I'm bringing that into the prominence with Too Many Thoughts in My Head because Zombie Bastard's is kind of a darker, lurking song with some lovey-dovey aspects to it, as did Beach Boys. You know, Beach Boys is one of those lovey-dovey songs with darker concepts and lyrics of feeling old. That's more Weezer being reflective than it is outright sad or dark. It's more sad. But Too Many Thoughts in My Head is a bit of a pickup, energetic increase in the track listing because a lot of the album is a lot more mid-tempo, and that's just because of the nature of the songs that they wrote. I didn't have a whole lot to work with to spice up the track listing, but Too Many Thoughts in My Head is a great song that doesn't necessarily have a contemporary sound to it, but it has energy that Weezer doesn't normally do in this style. And the bridge of the song, I think, is fucking great. I love the final chorus and the end of the song really well, and I think that it reinforces a lot of the cacophony that could come with having Too Many Thoughts in My Head. And again, it's more of a lyrical, darker moment for Weezer that I wanted to use to solidify that the album is a little darker or reflective in a sad way, as was Beach Boys and this. And then I'm Just Being Honest is more of that. It's another bright, shiny chorus with a bit more of a bitter edge to it that was more on Can't Knock the Hustle. There's kind of a bitterness to Can't Knock the Hustle, if you ask me. And again, it's just a nice, fun, mid-tempo jam that I put in there, and I swapped those two's places for that reason. I kind of used Too Many Thoughts in My Head to be an energetic uptake before bringing it down a little bit with Too Many Thoughts in My Head. Now, I got rid of The Prince Who Wanted Everything and Byzantine because I like Byzantine. I thought that song was fine, but a lot of the internet didn't like it, and I was talking to some friends about this version, or doing this album, and I originally wanted to put Byzantine on there so badly, but I know nobody would have agreed with me there, and I understand. If I truly, in my ultimate version, I probably would have kept Byzantine, but I hated The Prince Who Wanted Everything, so I got rid of it. It's a song that universally is hated, myself included. So instead, I injected a couple more Pacific Daydream cuts that I think reinforce a lot of the ideas in the record, like Weekend Woman and Get Right. Weekend Woman is just, again, a really well-written Weezer song. I love the chorus of Weekend Woman, and it has the same kind of bright shininess seen on If I'm Just Being Honest, or Too Many Thoughts in My Head. It has the same kind of bright, sunny chorus with a little bit of a bitterness by the end of the song that kind of feels like it comes out. But I put it there because I wanted to keep it still a little bit energetic because the album kind of goes into a lower moment with Get Right being a little more of a pulled back accompaniment song, even though it's not necessarily a slow jam, but it's mid-tempo and it's more acoustically driven, and so that's why it's here.
Also, it keeps the same type of groove as the Too Many Thoughts in My Head's chorus, and of course this song, so it just kind of sonically fits.
Another great chorus, another great song that has a little bit of a sadness, darkness to its edge. Now, there was a version of this record where I had Happy Hour in place of Get Right, but I feel like Get Right kept the tone, but was a better song as a result. So that's why I ultimately swapped it for that. And actually, Beach Boys wasn't on my original version of the record, but Happy Hour was. But I got rid of it because, again, it's not that good of a song. But then after that, I wanted to get one last, even more kind of twinkly moment with High as a Kite because a lot of the record is sad, dour in tone, even if it has bright, summery choruses and accompaniment. And High as a Kite is kind of Rivers especially, pulling himself away from the earth, feeling himself fizzle into the atmosphere to get away from a lot of the negativity that this album has thrown at you. A lot of sadness, a lot of morbidness in this record, or this point in the record is kind of the emotional climax where everything just kind of gets airy before coming back back down to earth one last time with Mexican Fender, which I think is the best closer I could have pulled out of this entire project. In a project where rock isn't necessarily the focal point, because a lot of the record is a lot more pop-centric from a production standpoint and from an company standpoint. You know, there's guitars all throughout this project. Like Too Many Thoughts in My Head has a sick guitar line in it. But the accompaniment on like Zombie Bastards and Mancha Screwjob and Can't Knock the Hustle. Weezer's toying with a lot of different things, but I wanted to end it on a note that is pure rock. And that's Mexican Fender, which essentially does a lot of the same stuff that a track like Back in the Shack did, but it's on a record that isn't as optimistic as Everything Will Be Alright in the End is. This is sort of the antithesis of that record, lyrically, sonically. And even though Weezer were making a record like that, kind of with the last two records, because Specific Daydream, as sunny and shiny as that album was trying to sound, some of the lyrics were pretty morbid and sad and in a reflective sort of way. And so that pairing it with the Black Album creates a pretty sad experience, or a morbid experience. And I wanted to end it on a positive note because I feel like that's the best place Weezer could have taken it. Also, I just don't like California Snow, so I got rid of it in place of that because I think Mexican Fender is a much, much better song. And that's ultimately the note I wanted to end this version of the Black Album on. And that was my redaction. Now, do I think this is as good of a redaction as my Red Album one, or as good as top tier Weezer? Not necessarily. I do think this redaction is better than my Make Believe one, because I don't have to recontextualize the songs themselves. I just had to put them together in a way that made sense and was paced really well. And I feel like I've done that. I feel like I still have made a better Black Album than Weezer did with this version. But your mileage with it may vary depending on how much you like the Black Album personally. I thought it was solid. I would give this version of the Black Album like a 7. I gave the original a 6 because it's fine. It's got good ideas, clearly. It was just a little misguided in some points. And that was my goal, was to make it a far less misguided project. And I feel like I accomplished that. But what do you think of it? Let me know in those comments down below. If you like this redaction, be sure to give it a like. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdery content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you would like to join their ranks and get early access to content, get exclusive content, and help me cater the stuff that I make on the channel, be sure to check it out. It's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. I've been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.